Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Let's get ready to rumble!
And please direct your attention to the pitcher's mound for a ceremonial first pitch. Introducing the ultimate baseball fan. All the way from McDonaldland, please welcome the one, the only, Grimace.
Tonight the Mets had just 2 runs and 4 hits, and that continues a trend. The Mets have hit extremely well on the road. They've averaged 5.5 runs per game away from Citi Field, best in the majors. At home, less than 3.5 runs per game, second worst in the majors. The Mets will send David Peterson to the mound tonight. How about that?
Well, Gerrit is struck out the first 2 out, nobody on for Otto Lopez. Still going, makes the catch, puts out to the 1-2 straightaway center, put it in the books.
I don't know how you do it. I put together some really impressive deals, but this thing you've pulled off, it's amazing. A big and tasty for just $1? How do you do it? What's your secret? Grimace, we could own this town.
Diaz was up in the bullpen when the Mets had a small lead, but now that it's a 5-run lead, Sean Reed Foley will pitch tonight. On the ground, McNeil with another chance. He gets all 3 ground balls on the night, then the ball game is over. The Mets sweep the Padres, and they've won 5 in a row. And the Mets sweep the Padres for the first time in 18 years.
Oh boy, the cat and the fiddle, and the dish that ran away with the spoon. Come on, Grimace. It's time to get back. Oh boy, lunch at McDonald's.
I knew you liked happy endings.
Go to the top of the 6th inning in Arlington, Texas. The Rangers are now up 6-2. And Nimmo is set to lead off.
And now Nimmo hits one in the air to deep right field. Back goes Jankowski at the wall, jumping, and it's out of here. Brandon Nimmo begins the Mets comeback with his 2nd home run in 2 nights. Number 9 for Nimmo. And it cuts the Texas lead to 6-3.
Here's Alonso.
Ground ball toward the middle of the diamond. That'll go through for a base hit for Alonso. So Pete is on base for the 2nd time tonight. And the Mets will get the tying run to the plate with starting Marte. Marte grounds one toward the hole, base hit. Alonso to 2nd, he'll stop there. So Marte, who might have broken his bat, grounds one through the hole for his first hit of the night. And the Mets have the tying runs on base.
Alvarez 2 for 2. Tying runs on. 6-4 Texas.
Runners get set to go. 3-2. And he lines one to left center field. That's an extra base hit off the gap. And it'll tie the game. Alonso is in. Marte scores. Francisco Alvarez with a 2-run double. And the Mets draw even 6-6 in the 8th. Huge hit for Alvarez. His 2nd straight 3-hit game as he plates a pair to get the Mets even. It's 1 for 3 and a walk tonight. Nimmo at 2nd, Martinez at 1st, 1 out, top of the 9th. And Alonso pulls one over the bag. That's a fair ball going down the line. Nimmo is in with the lead run. Racing for 3rd is Martinez. He's going to be held there. Pete Alonso gives the Mets the lead with an RBI double. And it's 7-6 New York in the 9th.
Edwin Diaz on for the 9th to try to finish this thing off.
Tonight he scored 2 runs. The tying run aboard and a ground ball hit to short. Lindor's got it to McNeil for 1 on the first. Double play, 2 men down. 6-4-3 double play erases the base runner. Iglesias with the turn in the middle of the double play. He got run into. So just like that, the Rangers are down to their final out, and Leody Taveras popped it up, shallow left field. Nimmo coming on, he's there. And the ball game is over. The Mets win their 7th in a row as they come from 4 runs down. Diaz secures Anderson for the save.
Look, does anyone have a question about the deadly virus that could kill us all?
Could the virus kill the Grimace?
Nothing can kill the Grimace. All right, we're done here.
And that's right, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Best Seat in the House podcast. I hope you liked our little extended opener there. I'm Rob Kramer. This is my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin. And Dan, how you doing today, buddy?
Well, I have to say that Mets seem to be really rubbing off of that Grimace magic. I think Grimace needs to maybe show up every couple of days to make sure, to little recharge the Grimace magic. He doesn't need to show up every day, but he needs to show up every periodically enough. And while you're at it, bring back, especially in the New York area, bring back the Grimace shake. That Grimace shake.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you, man. And maybe they should, arrange for Grimace to throw out a first pitch on every homestand.
Yeah, exactly. At least once every homestand.
All right, everybody. Well, in case you're not up to date on everything that we're talking about right now, last week the Mets had Grimace. I believe it was about a week ago today that the Mets had Grimace throw out the first pitch last Wednesday at Citi Field. They just came back from the weekend series in London where they split the two games with the Phillies. Then on Tuesday, they dropped the return to Citi Field to the Miami Marlins. So they continued that series last Wednesday where the Grimace threw out the first pitch. And ever since that game, the Mets have not lost. They've played 7 games since then. They're 7-0, and they'll be going for the sweep of the world champion Texas Rangers tonight at 8 o'clock, about 2 hours from now, first pitch, as me and Dan sit here recording this on Wednesday night, just before 6 p.m. here in the East. But before we get to all that nonsense that we're going to be talking about for the first little bit of this show here, as you enjoyed that little opener we had, we do have to start on a somber note as one of the greatest players in the history of Major League Baseball, Willie Mays, unfortunately yesterday, right before the Mets took the field in Texas, believe it or not, the news broke, where the great Willie Mays, the Say Hey Kid, passed away at the age of 93. A very long, very great life from Willie Mays. And, when news like this broke, Dan, it did make me even happier that 2 years ago the Mets righted a wrong that was 50 years overdue, where they finally fulfilled their original owner, Joan Payson's wish, and retired the number of Willie Mays, which she promised him when they first traded for him back in 1972.
Yeah, exactly. I have to give a lot of credit to Steve Cohen as soon as he bought the team. He made plans to do this. I remember that retirement number ceremony, they didn't even announce it. None of us knew until literally old timers. We didn't know until it happened. I was there. I didn't expect I was going to all of a sudden be there for Willie Mays' number retirement ceremony, but it happened, and I think it was a perfect time for that to happen. And
yeah,
it was nice that they did it while Willie Mays was around to see that even though he wasn't there in person, he was I'm sure he was watching and he got to see that it happened. So
yeah, and he sent in that video too. So, he was aware that his number retired. Obviously, like you said, he was not in at the age of, I believe at the time he was 91. You're not really up to traveling that much, especially cross country for Willie Mays, who lives out there on the West Coast, I believe. So, it would not have made much sense for him to risk his health even further back then and travel. But man, definitely great. The Mets did it just in time to make sure that he got to see it. And then, we got to see all the outpouring of love for Willie Mays. A lot of people that grew up that, were older than me and you, Dan, the generation prior to us, Willie Mays is, I'm sure for a lot of those guys, probably the best player they ever saw. For me, unfortunately, it's probably Barry Bonds because, as much as you want to say it was chemically enhanced, Barry Bonds, those numbers are insane. And as much as I hate to admit it, Barry Bonds is the greatest baseball player I've ever seen play in my life. And it's probably Willie Mays for a lot of other people too. You know, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, all of us, we all have relatives that were older than us that used to always talk about Willie Mays and how they remember him back in the day. I mean, even my grandma, I don't know if everyone, any relative you knew that lived in New York around in the 50s will speak about seeing Willie Mays in the Polo Grounds back in the day.
Yeah, it's true. Up until they left town after the 1957 season, where they relocated to San Francisco, and then the Say Hey Kid, brought his talents out to the Bay, where unfortunately they never won a ring out there with Willie Mays. The only championship that he had in his career was in 1954 with the Giants, where he made that incredible catch in the World Series against the Indians that year, which, by the way, the Indians that year won 111 games and lost the World Series to Willie Mays' Giants team. So that's pretty crazy in itself. So you got to give Willie credit. He got a ring, one of the greatest players of all time. And I've always had a little bit, obviously when you look at a lot of the great players of all time, everybody loves Babe Ruth. Everybody loves Hank Aaron. And everybody loves, just the greats of the game, the names like Walter Johnson, Jimmy Fox. A lot of people know those old-time great names, Lou Gehrig, and so on and so forth. But I always had a little bit more of an affinity to Willie Mays, and I feel like as a Mets fan, it's because he finished his career with the Mets, and I always liked the fact that he played for the Mets for not just 1 but 2 years in 72 and 73, and that his final career at bat, his final career appearance that anybody saw Willie Mays was in a Mets uniform in the World Series in 1973 against the Oakland Athletics. So I feel like, a lot of Mets fans probably have a little bit, of a soft spot in their heart for Willie Mays,
Yeah, exactly. Also, another little thing, I guess officially now, everyone that was mentioned, that song that you mentioned, Willie, Mickey, and the Duke.
Yeah.
That song was inspired by a very famous photo of those very players that was taken during Old Timers Day at Shea Stadium back in the day.
That's true. I believe it was in the late 70s that they were all walking off the field. You're right about that. That's a good point.
Yeah, and it's hard to believe every one of those players in that photo is no longer with us.
Yeah, it's a good point, man. And I think, as a matter of fact, never mind. I was gonna try and find it, but I don't think I can get it right now. Actually, you know what? Here it is. I found it. The Willie, Mickey, and the Duke photo that me and Dan are talking about on here. They're walking in from center field at Shea Stadium. And hang on a sec. Let me get it up here. All right. There we go. There's the Willie, Mickey, and the Duke photo. There's and obviously Joe DiMaggio in there too. So just some of the all-time greatest baseball players participating for the Mets in late 70s Old Timers Day. It's a pretty iconic photo, right, Dan?
Yep, it's an iconic photo, and that was part of how they did back in the 70s and even through the early years of the Mets. That's how they did Old Timers Day. They just usually found like various old timers from throughout baseball, being the fact that the Mets didn't really have much of a history. They were relatively new, but they still wanted to celebrate the history of Old Timers Day, especially the fact that it was kind of bridging the history of the baseball of New York.
Yeah, it's true. Very true, man. New York baseball is definitely some of the greatest of all time. Love looking back on the history of New York baseball. So rest in peace to the great Willie Mays, one of the greatest baseball players that ever lived. And so Godspeed, Willie. And now let's get back to business. And what we normally talk about here is let's thank God for the Grimace. Let's thank God for that big purple guy that comes from Ronald McDonald Land because ever since he threw out the first pitch, the Mets are 7-0. The Mets improved to 34-37 when they beat the Rangers, who dropped to 33-40. Yeah, the defending world champions are off to kind of a rough start first half of the season, but the Mets came back. They were down 6-2 at one point to come back in for their 7-6 win, for their 7th straight victory. And the ironic thing about this game, too, is that Luis Severino has been probably the Mets' best starting pitcher so far this season. He's been great. People have called him their best trade chip, leading up to the trade deadline should the Mets be sellers, which this streak is kind of putting into question right now. But it was ironic to me that Luis Severino finally had a bad game last night. He threw one bad pitch to make a 2-2 game, a 5-2 game. So that kind of screwed him up. Then he ended up being down 6-2 by the time he came out. But that's the really impressive thing about the Mets winning last night is that how many times, Dan, have we seen over the years the Mets go down 6-2 and they just roll over and die? And there's no fight from them, and we just know the game's over as soon as that ball leaves the stadium. But as soon as Brandon Nimmo responded and put the Mets back on the board and cut the lead to 6-3, I don't know about you, but I kind of got a feeling like, oh, this game might not be over yet. And the Mets proved me right with that.
Yeah, I just had a feeling they were going to come from behind. This team of late looks like they have a lot of fight in them, and I think they're just pumped by to just prove everyone wrong. They just looking at everyone having so low expectations, don't think they're going to do anything, and they're out to prove everyone wrong. And I'm all for this team going on this hot streak. I'm pumped. And I don't know. I have to give credit to the players and JD Martinez and everyone that's been rallying this team together.
Yeah, I agree. You got to give credit to everybody. I personally, and I'm sure you as well, have been critical of Carlos Mendoza at times this year. Not for anything in particular, but just for the perceived, the lack of motivation, the lack of enthusiasm early in the season. Whatever you want to say, they were lacking it early on in this year, and he's making up for it right now all the time. He's pressing the right buttons. Although I gotta say, I was kind of annoyed that when they were blowing the Rangers out on Monday, they pulled David Peterson after just 6 innings and 94 pitches. I would have liked to see him get stretched out a little bit more and not burn another arm in the bullpen. But hey, that's nitpicking at this point right now. The team's won 7 games in a row. They're a game out of a playoff spot right now. Let's not forget that the Mets are benefiting right now from this watered down MLB postseason where they added the extra wild card, because right now they're only a game out of a playoff spot. And as bad as this team has been this year, to still be just, shouting distance of 500, 3 games back, I got to give them credit. I got to give this team credit. I've been critical when it's been needed, but they have surged their way back in a playoff race, and for that, I commend them.
Yeah, I gotta give them a lot of credit. The one thing I do gotta say is, as they keep this hot streak going, and as they keep climbing their way back into contention, there is one thing that needs to be done, and I feel they can't half-ass it if they've climbed back into contention. They need to go after some pitching.
Yeah, because the funny thing is too that now, tonight they're throwing Sean Manaea on the mound going against Andrew Heaney. So Manaea's been pretty good this year. He's been up and down at times, but the thing that I don't like about Manaea is that he's only a 5-inning pitcher. So as much as he's been good at times, he seems to get gassed after the 5th, maybe even the 6th inning. But yeah, the Mets could definitely stand to upgrade their rotation. We talked about Severino at the top, who's been really good this year. Obviously, Kodai Senga is on the mend and on the way back. He had a couple of bullpens now. He's due to pitch a simulated game. And then they say he's on track to come back and rejoin the rotation shortly after the All-Star break. So that'll be a big shot in the arm. But I definitely agree, Dan. The Mets cannot be a game out of first place. Or I'm sorry, not first place. That they're a long way out of that. They're still 13 back of the Phillies for first place. But they're a game out of a playoff spot, and you have the richest owner in baseball. I'm sorry. Even if, the team is kind of up and down and it's only a 500 team, look at the Arizona Diamondbacks last year. The Arizona Diamondbacks got hot at the right time and ended up in the World Series. And that's exactly what the Mets have to do. If they're close, make a couple of moves at the trade deadline, keep your fingers crossed, and go for it. Try to make the playoffs, playing this quote-unquote long game where the Mets want to, not do everything they can to win this season. You can't do that in New York. You can't be a game out of a playoff spot on July 31st or close to it and not go for it, right?
Yeah, exactly. The other thing, they need to call back up Christian Scott.
Yeah, well, the thing is, though, Dan, I do agree with you because I didn't like the fact they sent Christian Scott home in the first place. But, the rotation is kind of getting a little, packed out right now when you look at, the slate of guys that the Mets have in that rotation right now. I mean, we already talked about, Severino, and we talked about Kodai Senga coming back and all the other things that are going on with this team right now. But, when you look at the guys that they are running out there with, I guess you could probably bump Quintana off, but, Tyler McGill has been pretty decent. So, I mean, who would you bump right now from this rotation? I would, because David Peterson's been pretty good. So I think we can both agree that David Peterson.
Yeah. I think Sean Mena might be the odd man out.
Even over Quintana?
Might be Quintana. Might be better off as long relief.
Yeah, well, to be honest, I think the Mets should just get rid of Quintana. I would personally, I want them to add a pitcher and bring up Christian Scott. And if you ask me, you could get rid of both Quintana and Manaea. But I think Manaea would be a good long man out of the pen. He's done that in the past with the Giants and the A's. But Quintana really doesn't have much experience doing that. And I think the Mets should just trade him and see what they can get for him.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like Quintana's the odd man out of this whole thing.
Yeah. And then, maybe the Mets could bring in an arm and hopefully bring up Christian Scott. Because I agree, Christian Scott was too good. Even though he was 0-2 at the major league level, 3.90 ERA in 5 starts, there were about three of those starts, or at least 2, where he should have won and the bullpen blew it. So you can't knock Christian Scott for what he's done at the major league level, and even at the AAA level, he's excelled this year, man. I mean, the guy at AAA has started 8 games. He's 3-0 with a 2.82 ERA, and in 38 innings, he struck out 52 batters. So Christian Scott is doing everything he can to show people that he belongs in the major leagues.
Yeah, exactly. He's doing everything he can. He needs to be brought back up. I feel this guy is he's pitching, dare I say it, on the ground level of pitching.
Well, I mean that's quite a compliment, and yeah, I mean maybe he's on. I would agree that there's a possibility that he's on the DeGrom trajectory, where he was one of those prospects that nobody really talked about until he was actually in the major leagues and making a difference. And we always talk about how DeGrom broke on the scene with that first start against the Yanks. And the funny thing about that too is that he was filling in for Dylan G that night, and Dylan G was at the Mets game earlier this year. So, earlier this week in Texas on Monday night, he was there for the 14-2 slugfest the Mets had against the Rangers. So, hopefully Christian Scott kind of follows in those footsteps and ends up, becoming another contributing factor to this Mets team. But I did want to take a look at this. Two southpaws, as they say, a couple lefties going at it in Texas tonight. Andrew Heaney, as you can see, has had a pretty rough year. He's 2-8. The ERA is not that bad. You would expect, with the 2-8 record to have, maybe a 5.19 ERA. But when you look at Andrew Heaney, though, he's had such an up and down career. Last year, when you look at his numbers, he actually had basically the same ERA, 4.15, but he was 10-6 in the regular season instead of the 2-8 mark we see now, and actually won the World Series with Texas last year. In the World Series, in 2 games, he went 1-0 with a 1.59 ERA. So this guy is a guy that's accomplished a lot in his major league career, and even against the Mets in his career, he's 0-1 with a 1.45 ERA. So, Heaney, it would be, in my opinion, really, really encouraging to see the Mets knock around Heaney tonight, because my whole point of this and saying this is that even though Andrew Heaney's record is 2-8, his ERA isn't that bad, and I think he's just pitching into a lot of bad luck on a team that's having a kind of a World Series hangover season. So I don't think anybody should take Andrew Heaney lightly, because he could go out there and throw 6 innings, 1 run against you, before you blink your eyes.
Yeah, exactly. I predict this game's going to end in a 5-2 Mets win.
I like the sound of that. 8 would be pretty great right now to get the 8-game winning streak going into the weekend series against the Chicago Cubs. Everybody would love to see the Mets get out of here on a sweep. And as I mentioned now, so after Texas, the Mets are heading to Wrigley to open up a 3-game set with the Cubs. Friday afternoon matinee at Wrigley, 2:20 p.m. Dan, I love the fact that the Mets are playing afternoon baseball over the summer against the Cubs at Wrigley. I always love seeing that. And the fact that it's Friday is, pretty cool, too, kicking off this weekend series over there.
Yeah, exactly. I say it's a good probably going to be a great experience for any Met fans who made the trip. And if you're considering making that trip, if you're able to make the trip, definitely make the trip out. Make sure the orange and blue is well represented in Wrigleyville on this weekend.
Yeah, you got that right, man. Well said, buddy. And as much as I have enjoyed talking about the Mets and Grimace and all this fun stuff, now we do have to turn our attention to the other team in New York. Just the New York Yankees, who are currently the best team in baseball, as we fawn over the 34-37 New York Mets currently on a 7-game winning streak. The Mets are a little bit hotter than the Yankees right now, as the Mets have won 8 of their last 10 and the 7 in a row. But the Yankees are still the best team in baseball, and they showed it by flexing their muscles last night, taking the opener of the series against the Orioles, 4-2 at Yankee Stadium. Dan, I feel this is a really good sign for the Yankees and their fans too, because me and you personally have kind of used the Orioles as a measuring stick for the Yankees this year, and we've seen the Yankees struggle at times against the Orioles. So if the Yankees are going out there and taking care of business against their division rival, then that's a really good sign for this team going forward, right?
Yeah, it's a good sign. At the same time, the Yankees are going to be a little bit handicapped a little bit with they're going to be up for a little challenge with I forgot, is Judge in the lineup, because I know he was out. I heard he was taken out of the game yesterday.
Yeah, interesting you bring that up, Dan, because we were just going to get into that too. As yesterday, yes, Aaron Judge was hit on the hand in the pitch. He was removed in the middle of the game, but Aaron Judge says that it was a big relief when they took a look at his hand. Nothing was broken, and he told Boone that he wants back in the lineup tonight. But unfortunately for Yankees fans, on last check, Aaron Judge is not in the lineup tonight. I repeat, Aaron Judge not in the lineup tonight. Aaron Boone says he is day-to-day, but you know what, though? With as good as Judge has been and as important as he is to the Yankees, I think probably giving him a day off here is most likely the best bet the Yankees could do,
Yep, that's pretty much what they can do. Just give them the day off, hold their breath that it isn't anything long-term because you're day-to-day, but day-to-day can be a question mark, as we've seen many times.
That's true, but I think the big bullet, though, that they dodged was the fact that nothing's broken.
Yeah, exactly. So they made a dodge bullet there. Another one that might be a bit of a challenge, Anthony Rizzo is out.
That's true. Yeah, Anthony Rizzo being out, too. That's another big injury for the Yankees to try to figure things out because, Rizzo, he might not have been putting up the big numbers, that they kind of expected him to. But, Rizzo, too, with another weird injury for the Yankees. Obviously, they kind of dodged the bullet, like we said, with the whole Judge hand injury now. But, Rizzo fractured his forearm. So that's something that is really going to take some time for the Yankees to figure out because, they're saying 8 weeks for Rizzo. And look, the guy has, like I said, his numbers aren't amazing. 223, 8 home runs, and 28 RBIs this year. But at least that's some kind of production from your first base. Now the Yankees are going to have to go out there and just keep their fingers crossed that, I've heard that there's a kid down in the minors soon that's having a pretty good year. But the Yankees have a couple of options. And the one that scares me, Dan, don't shoot the messenger for this, but I'm telling you right now, if the Mets go back on another cold streak and are sellers at the trade deadline, the Yankees are going to come sniffing around for Pete Alonso. And the last thing I want to see is Pete Alonso in pinstripes. And David Stearns better do everything he can to make sure that doesn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. He better not do that because he'll be the most hated man in Queens. I can tell you that.
You got that right, man. You definitely got that right. So, but that's definitely something to keep in mind. Another thing to keep in mind for the Yankees, as the Yankees just continue to get stronger. We've talked about their pitching potentially being one of their pitfalls this year, but a really good thing has developed over the last couple of months last couple of weeks. After a rough start to the season for Nestor Cortez, he's really rounding into form. 4-5 with a 3.36 ERA after he got the win last night and threw 6 shutout innings for the Yankees in their big victory. Against the division rival Orioles. So that's definitely a big feather in the cap for the New York Yankees as they need that to continue going forward. But talk about, their rotation getting stronger as real quick on this though too. I did want to mention while we were talking about the Judge injury is that they did avoid that little scare from Soto last week. So, definitely a good thing that things seem pretty under control now with Aaron Judge, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, it would have been a big. I think the wheels would have been falling off had he been worse.
Yeah, no doubt about that. With Soto being healthy, so that's a good thing. That was only a day or two where he had shoulder inflammation, and quickly returned to the lineup, not missing anything more than a day or two. So Soto's back in, and he knows he's got a big contract on the line after this season. So he's going to do everything he can to stay in that Yankee lineup as often as possible this year. And when paired up with Aaron Judge, man, it's just been incredible. So gotta love that with what the Yankees got. If you're a Yankee fan there, no doubt about it. And we were talking about the Yankee rotation there, Dan. It's going to be getting even stronger tonight, though, as Gerrit Cole, Yankees ace, bar none. He is their top pitcher without a shadow of a doubt. And the Yankees have, by the way, been the best team in baseball this year without seeing one pitch from their ace thrown this year. But he'll be back on the mound tonight at Yankee Stadium in just under an hour. Gerrit Cole makes his season debut against the Orioles at Yankee Stadium. And you have to imagine, Dan, that this is a giant shot in the arm for this Yankees rotation as the reigning American League Cy Young Award winner is set to take them out tonight.
Yeah, exactly. It's a big deal for Yankees fans, and they got to keep their fingers crossed that he's able to recovered from this injury fine and is able to get off to a quick start, because these guys coming back from injury, sometimes there's going to be a little rust off there. He hasn't pitched all year, so this one might be a shorter outing for him. Might take a little while for him to build up to the level where you expect him to be. As what happens when you got players start making their season debut this late.
That's true. But definitely have to give the Yankees credit for how they took their time with him and rehabbed him and didn't panic. And now he's coming back. And it's like, we've heard as Met fans in the past, and then it never really came to fruition in any of the seasons that we were keeping our fingers crossed, hoping on injured guys coming back. But for the Yankees, though, to get a shot in the arm like this in June is really, really big for that rotation, because as we've seen, the Yankees have been okay, for the most part. You can't argue the fact that they have hit their way to most of their victories this season, I would say. But they're getting really good production out of guys like Marcus Stroman, who's 6-3 with about a 3 ERA. Carlos Rodon, who's 9-3 with a 3 ERA, 3.5 right around. Nestor Cortez, same thing, 3.36 ERA, 4-5. Luis Gil. So a lot of people, I feel like, underestimate what this Yankees rotation has been. And even Cody Poteet, I mean, look at this guy, 4 starts for the Yankees, 3-0, 2.14 ERA. So I feel like, to me, this addition to the Yankees rotation only strengthens for what has actually been maybe perceived as a weakness, but has actually been a strength for the Yankees this year. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they just had luck so far, and they gotta hope it keeps running.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man. And that's a big thing for the Yankees with Cole coming back. And obviously, then after we see Gerrit Cole's season debut tonight and how that unfolds at Yankee Stadium, the Yankees then finish up with the Orioles on Thursday afternoon. Luis Gil, who is probably the front runner for the Rookie of the Year in the American League right now at 9-1 with a 2.03 ERA. That's a big thing for him. And also with Cole Irvin for Baltimore, who's had a really good year for them so far. He's kind of flown under the radar on their team, which really has so much talent. But Cole Irvin kind of gets overlooked. He's 6-3 with a 3.03 ERA himself. So tomorrow afternoon at Yankee Stadium, especially, let's not forget, with that sunlight in everybody's eyes around 4 or 5 o'clock, with 2 pretty good pitchers on the mound, we might be seeing a pretty good pitchers duel tomorrow at Yankee Stadium, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. It's gonna be a close game. Probably the Tef dog, one of the biggest Orioles fans I know, the Tef dog, Travis Tef, from the producer from the Jim and Sam show. He'll probably be at the stands for. He probably was, and he's probably gonna be in the stands for one of these games, without a doubt.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely with you on that, 100%. And the Tough Dog, he's got to be happy with his Orioles, even though they're not in first place right now. They're still having a great year, man. The Orioles are on pace to be one of the best teams in baseball. Them, me and you have said many times, it looks like them and the Yankees are going to be coming down to that final weekend of the year, going back and forth a lot like the Rangers and the Carolina Hurricanes did this year, where from wire to wire, those teams were locked in a battle. And it seems like we're seeing the same thing right now with the Orioles and the Yankees, right, Dan?
Yeah, exactly. That's what it's looking like. And at the same time, we never know how these teams are going to be worn out going into the playoffs.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. And that's what it's going to be all coming down to. I mean, it'll be really interesting. I think too, real quick on this. I think this is another thing that kind of stinks with the way that they have the baseball playoff format now, because no matter what happens, we will not see a Yankees-Orioles 7-game American League Championship Series like the way we saw back in 1996, where, it was best of 7, and we got all those great moments with Benitez, Brady Anderson, and Davey Johnson as the manager for that team against Joe Torre, and Jeter hitting the home run over Tony Tarasco's head, and all those great moments that we all remember, or even, mainly because, or only because, they play in the same division, and the way baseball has it set up now is that you play your division rival in the division series. Now, I know that kind of makes more sense, but it also takes a lot of the, the veracity out of these playoff series. I mean, think about it. How great was that Mets-Braves 1999 NLCS?
Oh, that was just a whirlwind of emotions. I mean, I think, well, but that was, I was still using one of those big boxy TVs, so my TV was able to take the beating after being upset after that when the Kenny Rogers won't get run. But every one of those games was I was glued to the TV. I was at game 5, the Robin Ventura grand single game, so I can tell you that was just a wild scene at Shea that day. The on and off rain, then going nuts. Like I just came home like I was 17-year-old me was really going through a lot. It took a lot out of 17-year-old me that series.
Yeah, man. I mean, and look, I was a kid myself. I was only 12 when that series was going on, and and the thing about it, I'll never forget that series, even though the Mets ended up losing in 6. But the crazy thing is, if the playoff system was the way it is today, back then, we never would have got that series. It would have been the first round. It would have been the divisional series, And it's the same thing with the Yankees and the Red Sox. Remember those incredible 03, 04 back-to-back ALCSs where both of those series went 7 games? That was, everybody remembers those series. That it's some of the greatest playoff baseball I've ever witnessed in my life. And they took that away from us now. You can't have that. Nobody even remembers that the Yankees and Red Sox, everybody says, oh, well, they haven't played in the playoffs in 20 years. Wrong. They played in the playoffs in 2018, but it was a best of 5.
But I can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. Well, but what do you think about that, Dan? I hate the way they changed this playoff series.
Yeah, I kind of hate the way they changed it too.
What's that, Dan? You were breaking up there. Couldn't hear you at the end.
Robert Manfred messed around too much with baseball, I feel like.
Oh, yeah, he definitely did. Rob Manfred has ruined baseball.
And I hope he is replaced as soon as his deal ends.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Dan. And real quick, just to wrap up on the Yankees here, as we're getting to the final stage of this show here. Yankees obviously having a tough customer series this week in the midweek series against the Orioles. So that was a big one. Obviously, last weekend they were in Boston, so that was a tough series too. So they get Boston, Baltimore, and now they're playing the Braves this weekend as their tough stretch continues. They get the Braves visiting the Bronx as the former Chicago White Sox ace and former world champion with the Boston Red Sox, Chris Sale, takes the mound at the stadium, 9-2 with a 2.98 ERA, kicking things off Friday night for the Braves. Dan, I got to say, too, it just annoys me that the Mets weren't one of the teams kicking the tires on Chris Sale. It seemed to me like Chris Sale needed, a new environment. And if it annoyed me when I saw that the Braves were the team that got him, because let's be honest, they got him for very little. Vaughn Grissom, who stinks, by the way, and can't even play every day for the Red Sox. The Mets could have got him for nothing too, and all they would have had to do is eat that salary. And once again, like we always say, we have the richest owner in sports. Why aren't they using it that way?
Like, once again, during the offseason, don't they fail during the offseason, not getting the pitching we need. And I'm just bringing my fingers crossed that as long as we keep if we're continuing this hot streak, that he will get us that pitching we need. Because this first half, I'm really still a little bit eerie about that ferret by the name that big nose ferret named David Stearns.
Are you calling him the ferret now too, like Eastside Dave calls Brian Cashman?
Yeah, I think kind of things turned out the kind of the reverse of what Dave thought. And we're the ones that want to fire our GM during the season up until this hot streak happened.
Yeah. Well, I understand Dave's frustration long term, but yeah, I mean, either way, the Yankees have been far better off than the Mets have, even with their ferret GM, who has turned in a pretty good season for them.
Yeah, exactly. He ended up getting champion.
Yeah, he did, man.
You haven't had luck with their previous GM to getting the job done in a while.
No. We definitely have not had any success in that respect in quite some time. Yeah, Frank Cashin was the last one to get it done in 1986. So it's been quite some time, my friend. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it for the baseball portion. Got a couple of little things here before we get out of here. I did want to talk to you about.
One thing I do got to bring up with.
Yeah.
Office. I don't know. I know this wasn't on EB's Walmart, but I bought a I wanted a copy of the London Series program for my collection, for my Mets collection. A copy of the London Series program. I paid $50 for this. It came out and arrived in terrible condition.
What a joke, man!
Yeah. Joke. Whoever handled this. It came out of terrible condition. I can't believe they did this to me, all right? You know how much I would have to go if I would try to get another one and hope that they don't mess this up. Hopefully they didn't. I would have to hopefully they don't mess. But it might be a while before I can go try to get another go at this. But they messed up big time.
Well, that sucks, man.
Yeah, that sucks. Also, I do got to say also, I'm excited tomorrow to be attending New York Giants and Night of Legends. They're doing it at that theater in the Garden. They're doing a nice little event. They're gonna have because it's a 100th anniversary of the New York Giants. They're gonna have a bunch of memorabilia that was brought in from on loan for the Football Hall of Fame on display, and it's gonna be a nice little celebration of the New York Giants' 100-year history. And there's gonna be several New York Giants legends speaking. And several current players speaking, previewing the season. It's gonna be nice. It's a nice little event that they're doing for the fans, and I'm excited to be attending this tomorrow. I managed to pick up a ticket. It was only $25. I'll be attending this tomorrow.
Wow, very cool, Dan. That's awesome, man. I mean, that's definitely something that a guy like us that appreciates the history of their team. Could definitely have a great time at,
Yep, exactly. I couldn't. As soon as I thought I figured I had to pick up a ticket for this, and I'll be going to this tomorrow. I'll be wearing my the throwback LT jersey you gave me.
Hey, very cool, man. Bringing it full circle. So that's awesome, man. Have a great time at that. That's definitely gonna be pretty cool. While you're bringing up the football thing, I did want to mention two little football nuggets before we get out of here. Dan, the Jets traded for the Eagles pass rusher Hassan Reddick this offseason. They gave up a future third-round pick, I think, in 2026, I want to say. So it's a couple of years away. And I was wondering why the Jets got him for such a cheap, price. I mean, it's a third-round pick. 2026. So kind of seemed odd to me in the first place. And now everything is starting to get clear to me that obviously this contract dispute was hanging over the head of the Eagles and their GM, Howie Roseman. And then he pretty much just flipped Hassan Reddick over to the Eagles and said, "Here, let's deal with it." Now, the thing that bothers me, Dan, is that you'd think that Joe Douglas would have been prepared for that. And maybe he is, and maybe I'm wrong, and he's just slow playing it right now. But it seems to me like when you made that trade, you knew you were going to have to give this guy a little something to get him to come to campus. He had already made it.
So I can't
be honest, Dan. Will rejoin us here in a second. But Hassan Reddick is one of the best pass rushers in football, and to have a situation as we are rejoined by the great Daniel Bobo Curling, Hassan Reddick at $14.5 million is, I believe, the 18th highest rated or paid defenseman at that position in the league. So he's obviously a lot higher on that list than that talent-wise. And the Jets should have realized they're going to have to pay him. You know what I mean? So I hope this isn't blindsiding them, because Robert Saleh talked about how at mandatory minicamp, which all these people were crying about, Aaron Rodgers not being at, which means absolutely nothing because Rodgers attended everything else. But Hassan Reddick not being there actually means something, because the Jets should have made whatever they needed to do to make sure that, okay, even if he's not at the mini camp they had the week before where it was not mandatory, they should have made it where he was there, whatever they had to do, pay him, get the extension done by then. But I'm sorry, by that mini camp, I would have liked to see Hassan Reddick there. And this worries me that this might drag on to training camp, and that would be a big distraction if that's the case.
Yeah, exactly. They really need to do something quick, and they need to do it right away. They really should have been prepared to do that when they made this trade. And I have faith that this will work out, because this seems to always happen during the off seasons when players have contract disputes. They get it sorted out in time. So I'm hoping that you don't have anything to worry about this whole thing being an issue, because last thing I want to see is that I have to play the role of Jets fan suicide prevention again for you.
Yeah, because that we had enough of that last year and the year before, by the way, where in 2022, at least we had the Giants having a good year. But in 2023, it was the Jets and Giants both stinking it up. So, let's hope we get some good football this season.
Yeah, exactly. I had to be, I had that role for myself. Well, not quite for myself. I was able to keep myself from I wasn't going to do anything like that. I'm only joking. I'm not going to do anything like that. But still, I had to keep myself from being too upset, because I was like, it was painful going through that entire football season last year. And that was getting me through that winter was thank God during that same time the Rangers were going on that unbelievable playoff run that should have been still going on, by the way. Should have been still going. Fortunately, as you see, I'm clean shaven, and I'm seeing some other team on the cusp of a cup, and I had to stomach another fan base getting to celebrate an NBA championship. And I gotta say, I mean, not to knock anything off the people of Boston, because I do have respect. They hate the Yankees. I got respect for them, but they've gotten these people, a entire generation of people in Boston has gotten to see so many championships in their lives.
Yep. I mean, think about it. Just in the last 20 years alone, they have 4 World Series championships, a Stanley Cup, 2 NBA championships. It's ridiculous, man. And obviously the Patriots with all the Super Bowls. So it's just it's been a really incredible run for that city, and it's been an incredible run of futility for New York.
Yeah, it's like most. I feel like most cities we see that stuff. Maybe spurts, maybe long gaps in between. They're seeing, like, most of their lives. They a lot of championships. They're like lucky they get to see that. I'd love to see that. See a lot of my teams go through a stretch of championships. Be nice for once.
Yeah, it's true. And Dan, before we get out of here, actually, since you brought it up anyway, let's talk real quick about the 2 championship series that we see going on right now. Obviously, Boston wrapped up on Monday night, and no Knicks fan likes to see the Celtics winning a championship. But what are your thoughts on Kristaps Porzingis, winning a title with Boston? And, I loved Porzingis as a Knick, and it sucked to see how that ended. And I'm just really, I don't know. I'm not happy for him. I guess I kind of am a little bit, but I don't know. I have such mixed feelings on it. What do you think, Dan?
That one just hurts. Another one that didn't fare out well, and it's freaking. Of course these ones turn out after they're with us. Of course.
It reminds me a lot of like Travis Darno coming back with the Braves and winning the World Series there, and stuff like that.
Freaking on the IL all the fucking time with us. All of a sudden he's singing like crazy and like freaking championship. What the heck? What's just than that?
Yeah, that's true, man. All right, and last thing we're gonna get to here today, Dan, before we get out of here. Now, obviously, we saw the Oilers hold on last night in Florida. The Panthers fans were all ready to celebrate as Lord Stanley was in the building for the second consecutive game. But for the second consecutive game, Connor McDavid had a 4-point night, and boy, that guy is having some kind of postseason. He joined a very short list of guys that have had 40 points in one single postseason in the NHL, joining the only other guy on the list, Wayne Gretzky. And Gretzky did that a couple of times. And if you look at the top point total lists all time for single season, postseason, it's pretty much all Wayne Gretzky. And then 7 or 8 Gretzkys down, it's now Connor McDavid etching his name in there. So congratulations to McDavid, who's had just another incredible postseason run here. But now at 3-2, with the Oilers having won back-to-back games now, only the second time all postseason long, the Florida Panthers have lost back-to-back games. The only other instance was in games 2 and 3 against the Rangers in the conference final. But Dan, now the series stands at 3-2, heading back to Edmonton for game 6. So what do you think, Dan? Do the Oilers do the unthinkable and win game 6 in Edmonton to force a game 7 in the Stanley Cup final after being down 3-0?
Well, I feel like the odds-on favorite on this one is probably, unfortunately, as much as I don't want to say it, because I'm so annoyed. It would just add salt to the wounds of the loss of the Eastern Conference Finals. But I feel like Florida might be the odds-on favorite to win this one. But at the same time, I feel like if Edmonton can win this one, I feel like they'll win Game 7 if they win Game 6 on I believe on Friday. If I'm correct, right?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think Game 6 is going to be on Friday, and yeah, I mean that's incredible, man. I mean, who would have thought when it was 3-0? I didn't think they were getting back to Edmonton in Game 6, and man, that team the offense just came alive the last 2 games. They figured out something in this Florida defense, and now going back to Edmonton for Game 6, that building is going to be going freaking crazy on Friday night, Dan.
Yeah, exactly. I think it'll be going crazy. Like I said, if like I said, I feel like, and call back to this one if you need to, depending what happens. If Edmonton wins this one on a Friday, I feel they'll definitely win Game 7.
It's tough to argue with you, Dan. I wouldn't think it's a slam dunk, but hey, I mean, if they beat Florida 3 times in a row, it'd be tough to bet against them in Game 7. Although the main thing Florida would have going for them is that Game 7 would be in their building. So definitely crazy stuff there. It would be really insane to see Edmonton come back and win. So I'm kind of pulling for that. But yeah, Dan, I'm with you.
Yeah, and we talk about the conspiracy, the NHL rigged. I just feel like the NHL doesn't want to, just want it's rigged because ABC wants 7 games. They want the money, Game 7. Because I know how quick the NBA Finals ended. You can't have both the NBA Finals end that quick. We need a Game 7. So I just have a.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see that too. But yeah, Dan, you know what? I think that's just about going to do it for us today on today's show. But before we get out of here, do you have anything you'd like to plug for yourself?
Sure, my Twitter account you see below the screen, Bobo103 NYC. Instagram, both on Instagram and on Threads, Bobo718DK. Also YouTube, one word Daniel Curlin, which by the way, people who subscribe to our Patreon, which is only $5, you get early access to my 2 weeks early. You get access to my YouTube videos 2 weeks early. If you subscribe to our Patreon, you get 2 weeks at early access on Patreon to my YouTube videos if you subscribe. Also, you get Bobo's Trackside Minute. Me covering what's been happening in the world of NASCAR. So you got plenty of extra content. Plus, you support the show. Help us maybe better equipment. Maybe help get us closer to maybe righting the wrong that didn't happen last year. Unfortunately, it was because you were out for COVID. But hopefully, we'll get to next year to Beezus boys hit up the garden next year.
That's true, man. That's true. We're definitely going to make sure that happens. So really want to thank everybody for all the support they have. If you want to support us even further, like Dan mentioned, our Patreon is the best way to do that. Patreon.com/Best Seat in the House podcast. It's only $5, so we appreciate all the subscribers and everybody that helps us out with that. So thank you so much for tuning in like you guys always do. We always appreciate the support. Every Thursday here on YouTube, we put the new videos out. But if you want to watch us do it live, we do it live Wednesday night for our Patreon subscribers too. So always trying to think of new ways to make it a little bit more appealing. So thank you so much, everybody. That's going to do it for us here today on the Best Seat in the House podcast. I'm your host, Rob Cramer, along with my co-host, Daniel Bobo Curlin, everybody. And we'll catch you next week on the Best Seat in the House podcast.
Push the button, Frank.